Hey, I'm Jonas from Flag Audio. This is a short video of my module Prodigal Son. Prodigal Son is inspired by the super saw oscillator of Roland JP8000, but with a few additions. Most importantly, it outputs in stereo, where one saw is in the center, in mono, and the rest of the saws are hard panned to the left and the right. Also, the sound generation code is not harsh or muffled in the top end for high notes, but instead loud and clear all the way up to the band limit. More on that later. Thirdly, there is a band-limited noise source to add some sizzle on the top for full sounds. The center saw can be dropped an octave, and take note that the band limit is also dropped an octave for the center saw, if you do that. Prodigal Son is polyphonic, with each voice using its own output channel. This way you can have individual effects, such as filters with key follow, or saturation per voice. Here's an example that includes moving some parameters. We change the noise mix. Here we change the chaos, which is a chaos modulation of the pitch. Here we drop center. Here we change the band limit. Can you even hear it? Here I change the noise brightness. Here I change the mix of the center saw. Here I change the detune. Here's a clip of just adjusting the band limit. Can you even hear it? Here's an example of massive chords. This is probably the best example of what the Prodigal Son can do. In this example, there is some chorus and delay added as well. Here's an example of a single oscillator sequence. Kind of like a 303 thing. This is also showing off the internal chaos pitch modulation. Here's another super saw sound, kind of like a trance riff thing. Obviously not sequenced, just played by hand. If you like the sound of this, please try it out. Thanks. So, just to highlight the band-limited nature of this oscillator, I'd like to compare it with traditional alternatives. The main approaches to making a digital oscillator are either rough aliasing, like the JP8000. In an example here of what that normally looks like, you'll see the aliasing, but post-aliasing, the whole sound is high-passed, so at least the aliasing will be attenuated below the fundamental. Wavetables. This is my favorite, and it's great for pads. Sometimes you can have issues with low frequencies, since they have a limited number of harmonics. If the tables are sparsely packed, some notes will have much lower band limit than others. Some implementations have one table per octave. If there are not enough long tables to cover a big number of harmonics, very low notes will lack high frequency content. Another technique is called blit, min-blep, polyblep or similar. This is really great for bass notes because it provides really full sounds, harmonics all the way up to the band limit. But it can have some issues at very high frequencies, like introducing DC, direct current, and audible aliasing too. An uncommon technique that still is pretty interesting is brute force oversampling, where you generate a naive signal at a much higher frequency, like a megahertz or so, and then decimate it down to 44.1 kilohertz or whatever the expected sample rate is. This will work great in theory, but in practice, a steep enough filter becomes very CPU intensive. To save CPU, you might have a filter that is not steep enough, and you lose some energy closer to Nyquist. So for Prodigal Son, I didn't invent anything new really. I just use a lot of waves, except for very low notes, where I'm doing some clever stretching and pinching of the tables to extend the range. That's a long story. Okay, that's all I got this time. Thanks for sticking around for that second nerdy part. Bye.